Thank you so much for the invitation to come here and speak. And I planned a lot of slides, but in a way, I'll start somewhere completely else. And this is how I work. I work with costume, and I do research in costume. And usually when I say this, people say, oh, I saw this play the other day. And I'm like, yeah, that's great, but that's not what I'm doing. So what I'm doing is I brought my friends here. I make these costumes that connects people. So there are two sets of things here to wear. So I take them into the public space. Instead of going on the stage, you can see that you can wear it like this, or here my glasses went. So they are all different, these costumes, and if you feel like it, they of course. You're most welcome to wear them. They are all stretchable, these textiles. I do, here they are. Basically, what I'm interested in is how can we become more playful, more creative together as humans? We now heard this wonderful presentation with the digital. I really believe in that we need to also engage our bodies. We need to engage with the surfaces that we meet in our life. So this is kind of what I'm trying to provoke with my research. And you can say that normally we are used to, I'm gonna slip some of these, we're used to costume being something that we watch on the stage. That someone else performs for us, we sit there in the dark and enjoy it. This could be a way of doing costumes as an ensemble where everyone looks the same. We tell a story. Here it's a dance performance done at the Skånes Dance Theater. It can also be something that refers to a historical period. It's all costumes that I've done this for 30 years. Or a character, this is a character of greed. Or you can say that you can also do performances that is or you think of the site. Here is a site in Prague that actually were, at that time, this particular place where the Jews were sent off to concentration camp, and we kind of made a performance that discussed how it is to be on flight. But anyway, so this is all these are performances where you watch, and you can say, let's say, here normally, and I would say costume is a really young research field. Here is a very big. A quote that many people have quoted in costume research that says, when we speak about costume, we're often actually talking about the actor. When we are speaking of the actor, we're actually talking about the costume. So it talks about the relationships between those that wears and those that wear. Yeah, the costume, the fabric, and the actor. In a way, I'm just trying to put it somewhere else. Instead of saying that we're talking about the actor, here we're having a hierarchy. There's a text that decides how the costume looks. I'm removing the text. I'm saying, what if the costume is the text, and we together explore what happens if we figure out what text it is, if you and I were wearing this. And we are not, in a way, I'm trying also to take it again away from the theater stage and thinking what happens if we don't stay on the stage. And I just want to point at this, there's been this really big costume, I think it's probably the biggest costume research project that has been done in Norway called Costume Agency. And they have been taking this idea from Alfred Munch's with the actor and saying, well, we take Munch's theory a step further and claim that costume is an interaction between the four components: garment, body, action, and context. and with these 4 components form one dynamic whole. And we want to research the unity from this starting point of the garment. And what they're claiming, and I think what is actually happening, and now I'm not only talking about my own research, but what I really see happening in costume research, where research is not, it used to be an area that were more in kind of humanities. Now costume designers like me are claiming to be allowed to do research on our field, and we are talking about how can costume become something that is itself, that doesn't serve someone else. It's not that it's not great to serve someone else. I've done that. I served many great choreographers and others, but I'm really thinking of what if it serves us as a community. And I'm gonna skip this. So, here I am in a costume with, where I walked as a part of a festival for 12 hours in this costume in the center of Copenhagen. And for 1 hour, I was wearing it with a guest. And you can say, is this research? Come on, this is just fun. But it is. It is fun. But it actually is also very interesting to wear something like this that puts myself and my guests in another situation that we are in our usual lives. Because what happens when I suddenly am exposed in another way, it could be either of these. What happens to me? Actually, there happens this, that first of all, I feel exposed. And suddenly I have a sensation that I don't have in my everyday life. I can blend in. I'm a white, middle-aged woman. I look like everyone else. Maybe some days I think I look particularly good, and then someone might look at me. But when I do this, I tell you, everyone looks at me. Or at least I think people look at me, which is really interesting because suddenly I can put myself in the perspective of the other. And suddenly the costume actually becomes an invitation to understand myself or understand my surroundings in a new way. I skipped out all the videos because there's so much video material of this. But one of the things that happened here also was one thing that we really felt exposed, and we talked a lot. I talked with all of my participants about this, which was really interesting. But the other thing is also we suddenly saw the city that I walk through every day. Copenhagen suddenly revealed itself at a completely other way. Because I don't know if you can imagine, all these textiles are stretchable. So when you wear it with someone else, suddenly you can tangle with all kinds of things. And suddenly you engage with the surroundings in another way that I do in my normal life. And you can say, well, okay, it's just because I like this kind of performativity. But I would say it's actually very interesting because now I only have 4 of my friends with me. I have quite a number, and I've done this with many different people. Of course, kids, they know it. They know how to do this because they used to play. But as grown-ups, we kind of forget how it is to be playful, to be a little bit ridiculous, to actually allow ourselves to get over the everyday norm. So I've seen people wear these costumes where they do, when they come back, I invite people to go for a walk in this. And I, in a way, do like I do now. I put them out and I say, well, please go for a walk. You don't have to do anything. You just walk away, take a little stroll somewhere. When they come back and I ask them what they experienced, they begin to speak about how it is to be human, which for me is really, really interesting. So this kind of idea of that you actually explore with a simple thing like a costume that connects you to someone else is for me, very interesting. So you can see here is a variety of these costumes. I mainly have these that are for 2. I actually started here with this costume that connected 4 dancers. And in a way, I started a little bit classical. We did a performance for a performance festival, but I could have claimed that I would be the choreographer there. I didn't want to. I actually was very interested in listening to what happened between the dancers. And suddenly, from what I experienced in my career, suddenly I heard the dancers say something about their experiences that I haven't heard before. And I also understood something about the costume that I didn't know when I made it. So I think for me, one of the key things is actually to listen. These are listening devices. Also, they are costumes, but they're listening devices. So I realized that these dancers, actually, I created a hierarchy between them. And this understanding that what you actually create, in a way, what we spoke about was how we negotiate with each other. In our daily life, it became a kind of an idea of how do we interact. When someone is far out there, there was one, actually you can't even see him, because he was so far away, he was more or less invisible in the group. So our idea became, how can we listen with the material to the other, to this person that was far away. So it became this device. And then you can see there, this is from the 12 hours I walked. This is very central in Copenhagen. Some are from other festivals. One is from a conference. So for me, actually, some of the key things, I have 4 key concepts, that is crafting, listening, hosting, and co-creating. It's all about how we relate. Costume becomes an excuse for thinking with how do I relate with textiles, with materials, and how do I relate with people? And how do we actually, with this as a medium, how does it allow us to speak in other ways? How does it allow us to become playful? Let's see, here we are. I think I'm just going to skip because I really want you to see. Maybe this will, can this run, and how will this? Here we are. This is from a festival called the Prague Biennale for Performance Design and Space. And here I had this performance where the audience were invited to go into these costumes, to explore them in the city. I had planned everything. Everything I planned never happened. We never managed to go for the walk I wanted. I could never almost make the move because they had so much fun. The group kind of spread all over. It was a really fun and exciting exploration. And these 4 people, all of them didn't know one another beforehand. And that was also really interesting for me to see this kind of course they signed up. So if you sign up, then you probably are welcome. Here is another little example of also a group that didn't know one another. They kind of invented this really fun game. It will continue a bit. For me, I'm actually, one of my invitations as a host is always to say, you can do whatever you want. If it breaks, it's not your problem, it's my problem. And that becomes actually really playful. It can look really ridiculous, and I enjoy that. Okay, I'm gonna go back again. Let's see. Because we can say that creativity, because I think it's always interesting to figure out what is the difference between creativity and being playful. And if you look up the words, creativity is to make something in a way, and play is more kind of a motion thing. doing something that has a movement within it. You can say that because I'm trained in design, so I know this, that when you design, when you're creative, you test something, you brainstorm, you test ideas, you seek for new opportunities. But when you play, in a way, you're willing to be foolish and childlike. And I experienced that quite a lot also as criticism of, well, don't you think this is a little bit foolish? And I'm like, it's interesting that it actually becomes a criticism when you're a grown-up, that we cannot be foolish, which for me is very interesting. But playful is also, for me, or for within the play, because there is the movement, it's also a matter of being willing to improvise on the fly, like musicians that are really good at listening at one another. They can probably do their instrument. I think we all have an instrument. We have our bodies. It's an instrument we can listen with. And how are we willing? Are we willing to improvise with our instrument? Is always my question. And maybe that's my whole research goal, is to keep on being a little bit provocative and inviting people in to play with me, because I don't mind. I actually don't mind. I become a better version of myself when I play, because I laugh more. I'm actually more grounded in the world. I'm really, another thing of my research is to really think about how do you host these playful encounters where you end up in the city. How do I invite others to do this? And for me, it has a lot to do with, in a way, as I said, setting some rules, preparing something, but also being willing to allow others to break the rules. And like kids, when they say, now we play this game, and we say, you're the mom and I'm the dad, and I'm saying, well, I don't want to be the dad, I want to be the child. So we can negotiate through this whole game. So that's one thing. Another thing is always this, really the surprise. The surprise is probably the most interesting thing for me, to be able to have done this research that keeps on being surprising to myself, but also inviting others in, because I think I don't do anything by myself. I always invite others to join, and the surprise that we can share, or being surprised by how we behave with one another, is actually really a wonderful thing to do. And in a way, what I wished most for in situations like this is basically not so much me speaking, but you being invited to join and to actually explore these small creatures, because they are friends. But I think I'm just gonna let them pass on to you, so you at least can touch them, because I think that's actually the key. For me, there is something with materiality that, I'm sorry, I need to pass it here so it yeah. Let's see. No, actually, the thing is, many times people ask, why do research in costume, and why would this research have any relevance to the world? And maybe it's a good question. It's always a question for myself, but I think there is always a relevance in inviting us to become more in our bodies, in our materialities, because I think we are very much, on myself included, very much digital, on all kind of media. And how can we, oh please, wear it. How can we, and this is maybe, thank you so much. And if you want, the invitation is, if you're there, you can lean back and stretch it as far as you want. It will hold your weight. But I think, in a way, I think this will be my contribution for now.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Förlåt. Thank you.